you. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Barry Darnall Art Live. And if you're tuned in, thank you for tuning in, and hopefully we'll have some more people that will be signing in for the live stream here relatively soon. Tonight I'm going to be working on a still life drawing, and this is a little bit different from doing portraits. It's quite a bit different from doing portraits. I'm going to be doing a couple of thumbnail drawings to kind of work with the layout and modify the reference a little bit to remove a few items and just kind of customize it to what I'm looking for. As usual, my photograph that I'm using tonight is from unsplash.com, and I'll put the reference photo up here so you can see what I'm going to be drawing. And you are definitely invited to join along. This is a photo by Natalia Melnichuk, courtesy of unsplash.com. It's a nice little drawing of a wine glass and a bottle of wine, a hat, some grapes. I'll probably remove a few of these items as we get into the drawing and simplify it a little bit. So let's bring this up here with the actual drawing. I'm going to have the reference over here on the left side of the screen for you so you can see what I'm drawing. And like I said earlier, if you want to draw along, I will keep the reference image up throughout the entire stream. And so the first thing I want to do, I'm actually going to move this reference photo over to the other side here. Here we go. So the first thing I'm actually going to do is to put down a couple of little thumbnail drawings. Now I'm going to draw in charcoal tonight. I thought about drawing in pencil, but I changed my mind kind of the last minute. Imagine that. Actually, I will do my thumbnails with pencil. All right. So basically the purpose of the thumbnails is so that I can kind of figure out what I want to do with the material. So I'm just laying out a kind of an approximation of what you're seeing over here on the actual reference photo. And now I'm going to just kind of tinker around with figuring out what I want to do. And you'll see this is not an accurate drawing. It's not intended to be. I just kind of want to look at what I'm going to be drawing and figure out what do I want to keep in there. And for this first one, I'm actually going to put pretty much all of the elements in here that are in the reference photo. And we've got our massive grapes down here towards the bottom. All right. And then up here we've got, I'm not really sure what this is. Some sort of a bag or something perhaps. I'm not sure. And then it's got some musical paper with some flowers coming out here. And then up here we've got the hat. We've got this nice dark band coming across on the hat. And then we've got our window frame back here with the shutters. And there's, okay. So this is my first thumbnail that I'm doing, okay? And like I said, this is kind of including everything in here. And you can see this is a little bit busy. So as you look at the reference photo over here, to me, all of this is a little bit busy, all right? So what I want to do is I want to figure out what are the key elements that I really want to keep in the drawing that I'm going to do, all right? So we'll do another thumbnail here. I'll make this one perhaps a little bit larger. All right. So first and foremost, I definitely know that I want to keep the wine bottle in here. That to me is one of the key elements that we're dealing with. So we'll keep the wine bottle in here. And I think we definitely need to plan on keeping the glass. What good is a bottle of wine without a glass? So we'll keep the glass in here. And let's see here. Now I'm going to be a little bit more accurate on this drawing. Spend a little bit more time on this one. But I'm still not trying. I'm not trying to do a finished drawing here. Now, I am not going to put the little basket of blackberries or whatever those are in here because I don't think they really add anything to it. I think it kind of creates a distraction down here. We're definitely going to include the hat. I do like the hat quite a bit. I think it adds a nice kind of a touch to the scene. All right, and so there's our hat. Now my question is, do I include this piece over here, which is this right here? And I'm not sure what that is. I don't think I want to include that. I think it's a little bit busy perhaps. But I do think I want to keep the flowers. So I'll kind of extend the sheet of music over this way. And we'll bring this down. And there's that. And then here's our flowers coming out into here like that. Now the question is, do I add the grapes in down here? And I think that I probably will to try and balance this out a little bit. So the grapes kind of come up here. They work their way down here. They kind of fill up this bottom left and of there. And they kind of create a frame of sorts along the bottom of the image right there. And then for the shutters, what I need to do with those shutters, because if you look in the photograph, you'll see that there's an angle on those shutters, and that's just being caused by the camera. But I'm going to go ahead and clean that up a little bit. I'm going to straighten those shutters up just a little bit. I think that's distracting the way those are currently angled. And then we'll bring our window down this way, like that. This is mostly going to black out in here. And we've got our dark area on the shutter right here. And then we actually get into the shutter, and that comes over to about there. And then we've got our slats on the shutter coming up like that. Okay. So, excuse me. So now as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking this is a little bit nicer than what we've got here. I'm still debating if this looks a little bit busy. Perhaps. I'm not completely sure on that. And this is the whole point of these thumbnail drawings, is so that you can lay things out, you can play with the design of the drawing. And as you can see, I mean, I've eliminated something from down here. I've eliminated something from over here. I've straightened out the window up here to make it look a little bit more attractive. So I guess my question is, I'm almost thinking that I may actually want to lose the hat, is kind of what I'm thinking at this point. So let's just toy with that a second here. And I'm actually going to bring in my eraser here. I've got my kneaded eraser, which if you've watched my videos, you've seen me use this quite a bit. So the kneaded eraser is just a real pliable eraser. It's almost like a piece of putty. It's a real stiff putty, and as it gets dirty, you can just kind of stretch it out, and that cleans it up. And it's really nice because whether it's with pencil, with charcoal, you can see I can put lines down there, and I can just come in with that, and pretty quickly I can get back down to pretty much the clear paper with that. So you'll see me using the kneaded eraser a lot, and that's what I'm doing this time. I'm getting rid of the hat. I'm going to pull this shutter down because I'm kind of thinking maybe the hat is actually not working in there with what I'm doing with the window. So let's see what we got here. So as I look at this now, I think this is probably a little bit stronger than what it was with the hat in there. I think I will keep the flowers, but I'm going to leave out whatever the small purse is, or whatever it is that it's in there. And of course, like I said, I'm losing the berries that were down here in the corner. And I may shift these grapes over a little bit to kind of balance out over here, or I may extend those grapes down over this way a little bit to see if I can make this a little bit stronger in here. We'll kind of play with that as we actually get into the drawing. All right, so I think that is probably what we're going to follow. That's probably going to be the design that I'm going to follow with this at this point. So if you're just tuning in, what I'm doing is I am basically taking the reference photo over here. I've done a couple of thumbnails with it. One was just a real quick one to show where we're at here. And now what I'm doing is kind of fine-tuning that a little bit so that we can see what my final layout's going to be. All right. So it looks like I've got a couple of people who've tuned in. So if you're tuning in, thank you for doing that. I really do appreciate it. Let's see there. Let me type something in the chat here just so people know I'm actually here. All right. All right. So hopefully you'll see that. All right. So let's go ahead and let's get the drawing underway. Get that pencil put down. And let me find my charcoal here. There we go. Organization is the key. So you definitely don't want to see what's going on outside the camera here. All right. So let's let me move my reference photo back over to the left. There we go. All right. So I think we're gonna Start about here. I'm just kind of laying out the borders of the drawing, similar to what I did with the thumbnail. Okay, this is not a real stiff permanent border. It will probably shift as I start laying things out in here. And once I'm done, you know, if this is going to be a finished drawing, a lot of this will disappear anyways, because it's gonna become my background. It'll become part of the shade and stuff. All right, so let's start with laying in. We're just gonna kind of put in some reference points here to kind of lay out where I think things should be. This should be about the bottom of the bottle here. And this will be my bottle coming up this way. And this should be about the top of the bottle. This will be about the side of the bottle coming down this way. All right. Okay. The wine glass is starting about here, coming up to probably about here or so. We'll kind of get that marked in. And again, like I said, this is just a real rough drawing right now. And I can already see if this is going to be the bottom of my bottle, my wine glass is going to have to come down a little bit further, down into about this range here. All right. And I can see that I've got somebody in there. Hi, Bridget. How are you doing today? Thank you for tuning in. All right. We'll bring the stem of the glass down at this point, and we'll kind of mark in where the base of the glass is roughly going to end up, in that area right there. And now we can put in the grapes. I'm going to pull the grapes over as I'm drawing this. So what you're seeing on the grapes, as you're looking at the reference photo, you'll see where the grapes are ending at about the edge of the stem, or the base of the glass. And I'm going to actually pull those over a little bit, like I was talking earlier when I was doing the thumbnail. And the whole purpose of that is just to kind of adjust the way the bottom of the drawing is arranged, create a little bit of a base for it, and maybe give it somewhat of a frame on the bottom, and try to balance things out a little bit. Okay, so we're looking pretty good there. And now the flowers, let's see, those are coming down somewhere in this area, coming up about right in here. And we're going to carry those all the way out to the edge, and then down. And then we've got flowers that are coming out of this area. All right. So as I'm looking at this, if my flowers are in a relatively good location with the glass as far as this level, then my grapes are sitting a little bit too low. So we'll pull the grapes up some in here, like that. There we go. Okay. And then kind of the last thing we need to put in here is going to be the shutter and the window. All right, so if you are tuned in and you've got any questions, feel free to throw those up in the chat. And as I'm catching that, I will I'll try and glance over there every once in a while and catch that and answer any questions that you might have about how I'm working on this drawing, or questions you might have about how to do other drawings. All right, so I'm going to bring our window down this way, and it looks like if the hat's gone, the window's going to probably come in about here. So we'll throw in our shutter right in here. We'll carry our window down this way. Now it's really important, as I'm drawing this angle here, I need to keep this angle and this angle pretty much the same. If you start to let those lines go this way or this way, type of thing, then you're going to lose your perspective, and your perspective is what's going to kind of create the world that all of this is sitting in. And if your perspective is off, your drawing's not going to look right. And now if you look right up in here, you'll see there's kind of the corner, the kind of the bottom edge of the wall. So I want to get that pretty much laid in there. And it's also going to be at that same basic angle as what the bottom of the shutter and the bottom of the window are at. Okay. All right. So now at this point, I can take another look at where I'm at with the bottle of wine. I'm pretty comfortable that my location down here, my positioning here, is pretty decent. So I'll make that a little bit more solid in here. As I'm coming up here, I actually think my wine glass is a little bit too tall. So we'll pull it down and we'll kind of fix that space in there a little bit. We'll come down to where my bottle should be starting. And then the curve of the bottle pretty much happens right here at the corner of the shutter. So I will put this in. And the bottle comes up a pretty good ways. It's a pretty tall bottle. We'll put that in. Bring this down. And we'll pull this down. Okay. And now I can play with this a little bit. As I'm looking at this, I'm thinking that I need this bottle to come up a little bit more. So I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to actually kind of extend the neck of this bottle up a little bit. We're going to make the bottle a little bit taller than what it probably in reality is. So we got that. All right. So let's see here. All right. So for starters anyways, we've got a fairly decent start to this drawing. Okay. So this is a fairly decent start on this drawing. Everything is pretty well laid in. I think our positioning of everything is pretty decent. So what we're going to do next is we're going to actually start massing in some of our shadow areas on this so that we can get a better idea of where we're actually at with our drawing. Once we get the shadows in, then we can come back and we can start pulling out some of the highlights from the shadows, and that will start to give us some depth and body in our drawing. Now you can see, and there's things that I'm already seeing that we're going to have to fix. Like I'm looking here, my side of the glass here is not really matching my side of the glass here. And those are things that are going to happen, okay? And I almost went in there with my finger, which I tell people constantly don't do that. And I'm probably one of the biggest culprits for actually doing that. So we might actually have to pull this back, okay? And I'm going to make sure that I start my glass here at about the same point. I want to make sure I'm going up about the same angle. I want to make sure that my curve is happening at about the same location. Again, I want to make sure I'm coming in at a comparable angle here. Okay, so this changes the shape of the glass up here on the top. It's now not going to be as wide. So that means I have to adjust this up here. We'll pull that out to clear that up a little bit. And now we've got our wine glass, has a little bit nicer shape to it. It's a little bit more even side to side, a little bit more symmetrical. Okay. All right. So this is our basic layout. Everything is pretty well in there. We'll have to get some more detail in here on the window and stuff in a second. All right. So what we're going to do next is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to start laying in just some charcoal in here. And let me find a different piece of charcoal, perhaps. So what I want right now is a slightly softer piece of charcoal. So charcoal comes in several different sizes. It comes in different hardnesses and softnesses. Okay, different levels of hardness. And the softer a charcoal, just like the harder and softer pencils, softer charcoals are going to lay down more. Harder charcoals are going to lay down less, but you'll be able to get a more detailed line with a harder piece of charcoal. Now this is a piece of vine charcoal, and this is actually a stick that has been burned, but it's not been allowed to actually catch fire, so it carbonizes the organic material and creates charcoal. It's not much different than the charcoal that you would put in your grill to cook burgers. The difference is it's instead of being, compressed into a briquette or a big chunk of wood, they go for small sticks or vines, and they turn those into charcoal, and that's what I'm going to use here. So we will come in. Charcoal is probably, if not it's probably the oldest medium for drawing that's out there. I would have to assume it's probably one of the earliest things that people picked up and used to put down on, a wall of a cave. I'm going to actually break. There's another nice thing about charcoal is I can break this, and I have a nice little piece here to work with, and I've still got a larger stick. All right, so I'm going to come in here, and I'm just going to start massing in this bottle, okay? We'll get this masked in. I see I've got a few more viewers tuned in. Folks, thank you for tuning into the channel. I really do appreciate it. Feel free to jump into the chat and say hello, and let me know what you think about the drawing. If you have questions or comments, please feel free to throw them in there. I appreciate all the feedback that I get. All right. So we've got that in there. We'll kind of we'll come in here, we'll mass in the grapes here. And you'll see as I'm doing this, I'm not, other than trying to stay within the lines of the general shapes that I'm dealing with. I'm not worried about trying to create any details or anything right now. I'm really just worried about getting my shadow shapes in here, getting some of these darks masked in so I can start to get a better idea of where I'm at and where I need to go with the drawing. Okay. And as we come up here to the window, this is a fairly dark area right here. So we'll get it pulled in. And then this here is another dark area. Although it does lighten up at the bottom a fair amount. And then we will come in here. Now these slats are going to be interesting because, again, just like I was talking about earlier with the line, the parallel line here, I have to keep these lines running pretty much on that same parallel so that the perspective is maintained. And there are ways of doing that mechanically. You can use, of course, rulers and straight edges to do that. After a while, you get fairly comfortable, like I'm just doing here, kind of putting those in freehand. It's really not that hard, but you just have to pay attention to where you're laying the lines at. And now I want to come in here and go ahead and throw in some of this detail on the window that I need. Let's see here. And it looks like that window kind of comes up here. And it's got a second line running here. Little detail there. And then we've got the bottom part of that window's edge right there. All right. And then we'll, for the moment anyways, we're just going to mask that in with just kind of a dark charcoal. Now, as you're looking at the reference photograph, you'll see that there are reflections in that charcoal that I'm not capturing right now. And that's all stuff that we'll worry about as we are developing the drawing. Okay. All right. So as we're looking at it now, we've got a fairly good roadmap for the drawing. And we've got our items pretty well placed in here. Got a little bit of a shadow down here that I'll make a note about, just to remind myself that I need to pay attention to that when the time comes. And that's really what a lot of this is. You'll hear me a lot of times talking about the construction and construction lines and creating my roadmap for the drawing. And all of these little things that I'm putting down here are really notes and reminders for me at this point about things that I need to pay attention to as I'm working on this drawing. Okay. One thing I did not address in the thumbnail is the little board down here. I'm going to go ahead and throw that in. And then that board kind of comes up this way. And because I pulled those grapes over, that board is now going to be going under the grapes. And I think I may have gotten that angle wrong. We'll pull that angle down this way a little bit. There we go. I think that's probably a little bit better there. And that is what the glass is also setting on. And then I'll need to keep this angle kind of matching, mirroring what I've got over here little bit out there, a little bit of a flare out there to keep the perspective. Okay. So, at this stage in the drawing, everything is pretty well in place that we need to have. And so what we're going to do now is I'm going to come in with a different type of charcoal. Okay. And this type of charcoal right here, made by a company called Nichrome. And the Nichrome Charcoal is basically the same as the vine charcoal here. The difference is when the company that manufactures this, instead of using just actual sticks, they take pieces of wood from different types of trees. They cut them into small wooden planks so that when they make them into charcoal, they keep this nice squared off shape. They're really easy to sharpen to a decent point, and they come in different hardnesses so you can lay down a harder or a softer line as you're drawing. So for example, with the vine charcoal, if I wanted to come in here and work on the glass, and what I'm working on is where you see where the actual wine is at in the glass, okay? With the vine charcoal, I would have trouble laying in a light line. But with this Nichrome charcoal here, because of the way it's made and because of the material it's made from, I can lay in a pretty light line here. And I can start to put in detail in here that's a little bit softer than what I could put in, for example, with that vine charcoal. Okay. One of the things that you'll notice is I've got an outline to the glass here. All right. But if you actually look at the reference photo, you'll see that the outline to the glass here is not a hard line. In fact, what the outline here is the shading on the label of the wine bottle is creating this outer edge of the glass. Okay. And that shading carries on through behind the glass. And then this here is actually a highlight, a reflection of light coming here. And that's what's going to create that edge. Right now, I put the line in there so that I can actually see where the edge of the glass needs to be. I'm going to come in here now just to kind of demonstrate this. I'm going to lay in a real light layer of charcoal. All right. So now you can see I've got some tone in here, some value in here. Which is where that wine bottle is at. And now I'm able to come in here. Again, I'm going to take the kneaded eraser. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to pull out this hard line that I've put in here earlier. So as I'm pulling that line out, you can start to see that the edge of the glass is being shaped by the highlight here. And looking at this, now I can darken the tone here on the label. And as I darken that tone on the label, it's going to allow that highlight to stand out even more. And this is where a lot of times when people are first learning to use charcoal, charcoal is actually one of my favorite mediums to draw with. You can do a surprisingly wide range of subjects with it, and you can get a lot of detail out of charcoal. Charcoal can initially be really difficult to control. That's because just like you're seeing with these lines that I'm laying in here, I mean, the charcoal wants to go in fairly heavy. It's the nature of charcoal that it lays down quite a bit of material all at one shot. Okay, but you can also, even with this stick, I can still stay fairly light with it and put in, I'll do it over here, I can still put in a fairly light amount of charcoal with just a regular vine charcoal stick. Or I can come in just like I did here, and I can put in a pretty heavy layer of charcoal and get a fairly nice black all the way to a really nice light gray and pretty much everything in between. Another nice thing about charcoal that I really like is that charcoal is extremely easy to blend. So I'll create a small patch over here. Okay. And then if I just take a piece of tissue paper, and I can really quickly come in here and blend that out. So now you're not seeing the lines that were there. I can come in, I can add a little bit more charcoal here to this. And this is all being done with just the vine charcoal. And I can continue to soften that out. And you can see that I'm going from a lighter tone here to my darker tones. And you can just keep on doing that until you get it down to, you know, a really black layer right here that just blends out to a real soft light layer going out this way. And then on top of that, you can still come in with all that I put down. I can come in here with the kneaded eraser, and I can pretty much wipe out 90% or more of it with the kneaded eraser. And you can see I'm getting down pretty close to the paper again. All right. So let's get back into the drawing here. You know, if you are drawing along with me, and I hope some of you are, if you'd like, when you get done, if you'd like to share your drawings with me, you can send them to my YouTube channel. The email address there, you can email them there. And I would appreciate seeing the drawings that you do. And if you do send them to me, I will share them on the next live stream that I do. Okay. Now I'm looking at my glass and I'm seeing where I've got the wrong shape on this glass. It's pretty well off, and I'm going to try and remedy that with the eraser here. So I can see now where glass is coming down. This is the rim of it. And then this is the upper part of the rim. Pull that in. And now I'm going to get rid of these lines here that I put in earlier. These were my construction lines when I was first drawing the glass and laying everything out. And they are certainly incorrect at this point. So let's get the edge of this bottle worked in a little bit more. And again, what you'll see is now I'm coming to the top of the actual wine that's in the glass, and I need to bring this tone of the wine bottle through here. But I need this edge to be darker. This edge here is on the shadow side. My light is primarily coming from over this way. So this is going to be my shadow side of the bottle. It's going to be pretty much the shadow side of everything. And then that label will get lighter as it progresses through here. And again, like I said, this is what's going to define the shape of the wine glass on this side, is this actual shadow here. All right, so we got that in there. Now what we want to do, I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to handle this area over here, because I got rid of the hat, and the hat was what was creating the shadow area that the highlight was able to stand out from. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do for that is actually go back to this small piece of vine charcoal, and I'm going to lay in a little bit of tone through this whole thing here. So we'll lay in this tone throughout here. Okay, and we will lay some of it in up here too, because it actually does carry over to here, and there are some shadows over here that are going to help to set the stage. And there are some shadows coming down off of the wine bottle here. They're not actually the wine bottle. It's shadows from, I'm assuming, another window or an awning or something that's outside where this is sitting at. So now I've got those in there, and what I'm going to do is take the tissue paper, and I'm just going to kind of work those in here. I'm not really trying to build anything that's super dark. I just want to get a little bit of tone in there other than the clean paper. And I'll probably have to come in and darken this up some more as I'm doing the drawing. But you can see now I'm getting away from just the white of the paper. All right. And I can actually pull that into the wine glass here. And get rid of some of that. I can still see where the lines are at. But now what I've got is that tone back there that I can work with a little bit to help me build the shape of the wine glass. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to lay in another little layer of tone in here. There we go. And I'll come in again and we'll blend this down. There we go. And of course, you may be looking at that and you may be thinking, whoa, that really went dark in there. And it did. It definitely is darker than perhaps what the reference photo is showing. But now what I can do is come in here and just very slowly, very carefully, I can pick out these highlights again. And I want to kind of restate the highlights on this side of the glass where it kind of disappeared. And then I want to come in here and redraw the edge of the glass up here. And I want to bring down my front rim of the glass again. And then I want to look at this left side of the glass as well, because I want to get that at least marked in to start with. And I can see, you may not be able to see it on camera, but I can see where the line of the original drawing was at. So I can pretty easily pull this in. We'll come down there. And I can come in here and put in the top edge of the actual wine, which is right in here. And then we will pull that down. So you can see in this case, I mean, what I'm doing is I'm using the eraser to do a lot of my drawing. And it's, you know, there's certainly nothing that's locked in stone. I can still make corrections. And if you look down here at the bottom of the glass, you can see where it is kind of lighter down here in on this side. You've got a fairly light area over here where there's some light reflecting in the glass. There's a little bit more over here that's reflecting. And then you've actually got some reflections in the glass itself that are right in there. And now I can come in here again with my charcoal and I can start to build in some of the darks that go in here. And as I'm starting to get these darks in here, that's what will give me some of the contrast that is going to start giving this shape and making it look more rounded. And it should start helping it to appear more and more like glass. And I can come in here on the bottle now. I want to reestablish some of these lines over here on the bottom of the bottle. And by using this piece of charcoal here, this charcoal will still erase, but it will not erase quite as much as the vine charcoal would erase. So the lines I'm putting down now are going to be a little bit more permanent and a little bit more substantial than what I've laid down previously. And because of that, we're going to get a little bit more permanence to the drawing at this point. Okay. Now this in here, I'm going to bring all of this here down to a darker tone. And you'll see I've got the highlights in there. I've got them, again, just kind of marked. They're not necessarily going to be the final highlights, but they are showing me that I've got to put highlights in there at some point. All right. So as I'm looking at the label, what I'm seeing is that the label that's inside the glass is actually a little bit darker than the label that's outside the glass. And that's probably has something to do with the shape of the glass, and it's kind of magnifying the shape of the bottle, but it's also magnifying the darkness of the shadows and the tones that are back in here. So we're going to darken those up a little bit to show that. And those darker tones will also help me to shape the glass some more. And I'm going to go ahead and bring that up here. Okay. right here on the glass, it's a little bit hard to see, but there is actually a kind of a dark shape that runs down the side of the glass on the front. And that was probably more a reflection from perhaps the band on the hat. But in this case, it could be reflection coming from the window over here as well. And that's kind of what I'm going to play off of. That'll help me to shape that glass a bit. There we go. Now we'll get down into the stem a little bit here. And a lot of times as you're drawing things like this, it won't necessarily take on the image of being realistic until you get another component put in there. And I'm kind of hoping that when I get this stem of the glass in here, that will go a long way towards letting this appear more realistic than what it might be up until this point. There we go. All right, so just like that. Okay. And now I'm going to come back into our bottle over here. Work on defining those areas a little bit more. Now I want to go ahead and kind of commit myself to the bottom edge of the bottle. At this point, I think I can do that safely right now. And then I do want to clean up this inside edge of the glass. All right, there we go. Okay. Alrighty. So I guess this is as good a time as any to thank everybody again who's tuned in or who may be watching this video at some time in the future out on YouTube. That if you would, please take a second and hit the subscribe button and subscribe to my channel. You can also hit the like button and share it. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so that you can be notified in the future when I'm posting videos or when I'm setting up a live stream. You'll get a notice that I've got something going on. If you enjoy what I'm doing, I definitely would love to have you come back and watch my future videos and live streams. And it also helps me to build and grow the channel by getting the subscribers and the likes and shares. Okay, so I think that's looking pretty good in there right now. What I want to do next is start to work a little bit up here on the bottle. Okay, and one of the first things I want to do with that is I want to start coming in and pulling out. Well, actually, I'm take that back. I'm going to come in first. I'm going to kind of put some of this charcoal down a little bit more solidly to begin with. So this is a blending stump. It's the same type of blending stump that you'll see me use on pencil drawings. It's nothing more than just a really tightly rolled stick of paper. And what I'm using it for here is just to kind of press some of this charcoal into the paper and help me to kind of commit it to a more permanent state. But what I want to do as well is I want to get this curvature here on the bottle pretty well mirrored over here on the bottle. And I think that's probably pretty close right there. Bottles and symmetrical shapes like this, they can be a challenge sometimes as you're trying to get them down. It's not uncommon, just like what you saw on the wine glass earlier, to get things kind of asymmetrical where your one side is got a different curvature to it. That's not uncommon, and there are tools and techniques you can use that make that a little bit less of an issue. But it's still, it's important, because if your lines and your curves are not fairly symmetrical, then your bottle's just going to look lopsided, and it will draw people's attention to the problem in the bottle as opposed to the drawing, which is where you really want them focused on the drawing that you've created, and not some defective look in the bottle. And it takes practice, and it, you know, it's definitely worth spending the time practicing and learning how to do. If you're going to do any kind of still life drawings, that's definitely something you want to work on, is drawing shapes like that, especially symmetrical shapes. Now, I think what I want to do, if you look up at the top of the glass, there is a shadow in here. It's actually a reflection coming off of the bottle. And that reflection is also helping to define the upper edge of this glass. So we'll get that in there. There we go. Okay, and I think I'll do a similar one over here, but it's going to be quite a bit lighter, and that will help to define that rim of the glass and separate the glass from the background area here. Okay, and then I'll come in with my blending stump on this one, and I'll just really lightly blend that out. Don't want it to be too pronounced. Okay. And then I think we can clean up this edge here on the rim. And I want to pull some more shadow into this, more reflection into this here to help shape that a little bit more. There we go. And in here on the wine, there is some areas on the wine that are in need of a little bit more darkness. Now, I don't know if it's coming through or not on the audio here, but every once in a while you might be hearing our dog Jack bark, or you might be hearing one of the cats. I've got a cat currently scratching at the studio door. They like being in here with me, but they can definitely be a nuisance when I'm trying to draw and I'm trying to pay attention. And especially one of the cats, she likes to get up and start knocking things off of the table and the desk. Makes it a little bit difficult to get anything accomplished when you're constantly picking your tools up off the floor because of a cat. All right, there we go. Okay, so you can see what's happening over here. Because my hands are touching the paper as I'm drawing, it's causing a lot of the charcoal to smudge. Again, this is one thing about charcoal, is that it does smudge. And you do reach a point where, as you're finishing your drawing, you have to start being really, really cautious about what you're doing so that you are not doing what I've done here. The nice thing is, again, another one of the qualities of charcoal is I can come in here with the eraser and I can just very quickly clean that up, pull that out. And now I've more or less fixed up that particular little issue. So let's go in, and I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to start working on the music paper here. The first thing with this is that it comes up here, and this is kind of the peak of it right here. And then it's going to be a fairly sharp edge coming down like that. So I need to create that separation here between the background and the paper. There we go. And then I'll come in with the blending stump again and kind of smooth that out. Blend some of my lines in back there. And I'm coming in again with the eraser. I want to clean out some of this. And you can see how stark the difference is between back here where I've laid down the tone and now where I'm pulling off of the paper to create the highlight. And if you look at the paper, you'll notice that the paper is not completely white. This up here, because it's catching the light, is extremely bright and extremely white up here. But as it comes down and as it goes back here, it fades into more of a gray. And I'm using the eraser to just kind of soften that. Okay, I'll come in with some tissue paper and see if I can't blend that out a little bit. There we go. And then as we get in here, kind of the same thing, except back in here, the paper is definitely a darker tone. This is all in shadows in here. And now I'm going to start drawing in a little bit of my detail in here for the flowers that are back in here. That's going to help me to separate this paper from the shadows as well. I'm going to come in and clean this up just a little bit. There we go. All right, so we'll get some of the bases of these flowers in here. I'm not going to worry too much about the detail in here. I just really want to make sure that I'm separating my larger light and dark shapes in here. There we go. All right. Pull this down in here. And I've got a flower down here. And then everything down here is pretty much shadows on the tabletop. There we go. I don't know if you can hear the charcoal stick on the paper. It definitely makes a lot of scratching noise. I like it. I think it tells you that you're getting good marks on the paper. You're getting something down that you can work with. Okay. All right, so I'm going to sit back a little bit and take a look at where I'm at. And right now I'm comparing the image that I've got for reference material to what I've actually got down on paper, and trying to see what do I need to work on here. Okay. I think at this point what I might do is, I am already a little bit over an hour into this session. So I think what I'll do is I will just do a couple things down here with the grapes, and then I'll try and get some feedback from people and see if they would like me to pick this up again next week and do another live session with this same drawing and take this a little bit further and see where we can go with it. So if you are watching this, please let me know if you would like to see me finish this drawing next week. And if so, that's what I'll plan on doing. And if not, then I'll move on to something else. Definitely in the comments, let me know what you think about the drawing, what you think about the video. Let me know what you would like to see me work on. If you have recommendations about what I can do with my video to improve the quality of what I'm doing, definitely share that feedback with me. I'm fairly new to doing the YouTube videos, and I'm learning, and I want to be able to put out a good product, a good show with good content that people will enjoy watching. And your feedback is what is going to help me to do that. So by all means, I'm open to the feedback. Positive, negative, it's all information, and I'm willing to make use of it. So please leave me some comments and let me know what you think. So, all right. Well, I think that's going to be it for this week. Next week, if I get enough interest, I'll pick this piece back up again, and we will go through and finish up doing detail in the bottle, the window. We'll get the grapes done. We'll start to clean things up a little bit, and then I'll probably come in with a white charcoal pencil and lay in some of the really bright highlights, and we'll see if we can take this piece to a decent finish. So, all right. Well, thank you for tuning in again, folks. I appreciate it. My name is Barry Darnall with Barry Darnall Art, and until next time, keep drawing.